I find it fascinating in a way because I think although everybody knows of the existence of the credit bureau, I think most people don't really understand the role of it. And beyond its, general description, let's say, a lot of people don't really understand the weight of the credit bureau to the local economy in general. So I would follow up by asking you, what do you think people should understand, or how would you describe, let's say, the role of the credit bureau outside of it just being a credit bureau?
Definitely. I mean, uh, businesses or lenders always knew the credit bureau, but the public, you're right, have never understood the role of the credit bureau. And a lot of the times, CINET is now just celebrating 25 years since inception.
It's amazing.
Yes. And, it's for 25 years, I would say the past 20 years, or maybe just it was purely B2B business, talking to the lenders only. But I think there was a turning point in 2019 when there was a law 9 of 2019 that was launched in Kuwait, and there was also similar laws across the region where it introduced the credit bureau not just as a B2B, but also that it has a role toward the public as well. So we added the B2C aspect there in order that we have to have some credit scoring. There has to be financial transparency because many of the time, banks report data about everybody, about their payments, loans to the bureau, and other banks read it. But the public don't know what they reported about. And every information about your loan or your credit card, you wouldn't see it. But since Law 9 of 2019 came out, there was kind of a mandate that people should have access to their credit report and free of charge. So we do that as part of our advancing credit literacy to the public. And one thing that people should know is that the credit bureau is there to help you make informed decisions about the next loan you're planning to take, is there to show you what banks are reporting about you. And you're able to see everything that's reported about you because it's your data, it's your loans, it's your facilities. You need to know first before the banks see it. So we're trying to reduce the information asymmetry, I would say, to ensure that there is full transparency in the market.
I actually love how you pointed at owning your own information and knowing about what's going on. And I think ultimately this is what we're talking about. It's beyond credit score, right? It's about trust. It's about building an accurate log track, let's say, where people can see your information, but you can use it in a way that it's actually useful for you. But you mentioned this B2C aspect, and I'm curious to know from your end, what do you think is the most misunderstood thing about CINET in general and the credit bureau?
Well, if we talk about the public, a lot of people don't hear about CINET unless they get rejected for a loan, and they're like, "Oh my God, this is where I get blacklisted." So we've been having some kind of bad names of the blacklist or the block list and things like that, and it's a very old misconception because previously, and in many countries in the world, even in Europe, credit bureaus historically acted as a registry only. And if somebody defaults or had some legal issues with loans, they would put him in that registry. So other banks would know about him or her before granting a loan. But that was the past, where there was just registries of people who are, defaulters. And right now, and that was what they call a negative bureau, which only negative information are reported.
Yes.
But that was never the case in Kuwait. There is, in Kuwait, our bureau is always a positive and negative bureau, meaning what the banks report about you are good behaviors, meaning you pay on time, that you are, taking responsible steps toward repayment, and negative as well. So it shows the full picture between positive and negative. And I think that's where kind of there's a lot of misconception that it's only negative information. The problem is you never look into it unless you're probably checking your why am I rejected for that loan? Oh, because I did not pay a credit card and that was negatively reported on my credit report. And then you're able to know, oh, do I have a credit report? Can I look at it? And that's why we've done multiple campaigns in the past 2 years. We've done the Shlonik campaigns. I mean, how are you or what color are you? Because what we did with the credit scoring, we put 5 colors, go from red all the way to purple, which is great. And these identify kind of segments of people of different behaviors. So it goes all the way, the red is kind of risk, and the purple is elite, which is somebody who's doing really good on his credit.
Yes.
And it has nothing to do with income. It mainly has to do with your behavior.
Yes.
So people, even with low income, can have an elite credit score just because their behavior, their repayment, they're paying on time, they're borrowing responsibly, they're not always maxing out their credit. And then we've done another campaign. It's called the Mr. Score. And the Mr. Score is basically a behavioral coach. He's like a certified coach in credit behavior. And it's also a way for us to show the public that you have control over your credit score. It's not what the banks report on you. It's what you do, how you
Yes.
pay your payments. And that's kind of the shift of thinking that you're in the control, you're in the driver's seat of your credit report and your credit score and your credit color. And that's why these continuous campaign kind of are trying to build this new picture and exact literacy. There is, financial literacy is a bigger subject, but credit literacy is a very important subject.
Yeah, I'm actually, looking at what you said, I get the feeling that most people associate the credit bureau with more punitive action, let's say, whereas what you're saying is that it's just a tool that creates a healthier and more transparent economy. But I'm curious, at what point does the credit bureau stop being just a tool and it actually becomes a reflection of the local economy?
A very good question. I mean, usually when you look at what we have in the credit bureau is really an economic sentiment of what's happening in the country. When people are borrowing, when there is new, credit card spending and new car loans, mean people feel good about the economy and they are spending more and they are taking more loans. Same thing for corporates as well, not just people. When there is, companies borrowing more money means there is growth. There is more jobs, there is more hiring. Same thing for SMEs, the small and medium enterprises. When there is more lending or they're borrowing means they are expanding and growing. So a lot of what we see in terms of credit behavior really reflect what's going on in the economy and how people feel about the economy.
Exactly, because it stops being just about numbers, right? It becomes, like we said, the underlying behaviors. It's cautious, discipline, all of these underlying, let's say, attributes that you see in the economy. I want to ask you, do you think Kuwait has today this financial discipline, or do you think it's more financially protected somehow? What do you think is the attitude, let's say, of Kuwait as a market?
I mean, one thing about Kuwait is that we have a very strong kind of banking presence and a very mature banking presence. But at the same time, we have a very strong regulator as well. And that is honestly it's a very unique situation because for us as a credit bureau, it provides us with very good data. When you have a mature banking practices, you have very
Yes.
good data coming from there.
Is
And
your data mainly coming from the banks?
No. So banks are about 30% or so from our
Okay.
bank. So we have around 80 data providers.
Okay.
They go from local banks. And then you have another kind of, they break into kind of where they're regulated about, but it's open for any company that does any payment behavior. So you have the banks, of course, financial and leasing companies. We do also the buy now, pay later, which is a smaller kind of portfolio, but it's an up and coming portfolio, which is, the BNPL companies like Dima and so on. There is another also company, there is a segment for the retailers who are, selling on installments. So even the electronic store, if you buy a phone or if you buy even a laptop or even furniture on installments, this data gets reported to us. So we receive millions of data points every day around every single loan or behavior. Even car installments come into the picture. And that's the beauty of having kind of a credit bureau that looks at everything, not just loan. Historically, you're right. Historically, it was just banks and credit cards. But that was up until 2019 when the law was introduced.
Yes.
To say that this is the law of credit information exchange. When we say credit information, it's not just loans. It's anything that is of a payment behavior. And one big portfolio that we are building right now is the real estate or the tenant portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
So what we noticed is a lot of the tenants in Kuwait, when, they could go and rent an apartment, for example, and default for 3 months. They get
Yes.
evicted. They can go to the building next door and rent another apartment, and
Yes.
nobody would know about the history of that.
This is a great point.
It is, and landlords were suffering. A lot of the real estate companies were suffering, and that kind of triggered a big collaboration between CINET and the real estate union. And we've got the regulator, kind of the Central Bank of Kuwait has blessed that project. The Ministry of Justice has also contributed, and what we're working is kind of a national project to introduce not just a credit report, but a tenant report. And that will include kind of a mix of information of your credit history, your tenant history. And it's a new type of data because your rent, your monthly rent is part of a payment behavior. And that also falls under your credit profile and credit report.
And I think this is also going to add, let's say, also the element of speed of accessing information, right? Because basically, if it's all digital, if somebody is defaulting, if I would have normally found out after, let's say, 3-4 months when he has or she has a, let's say, I don't know, a court hearing or
Yes.
where, it eventually gets disputed, I'm thinking. Now it's much easier because through the credit bureau, you have access to this information much faster.
Exactly. And one of the things is, even in loans, the speed is now the key. Historically, when somebody wanted a loan, the relationship officer, they call them in a bank, is the one who knows you as a borrower or even as companies. They depended on relationships to give loans. Right now, if you think about it, the electronic store that, kind of you buy something online and you say, I don't want to pay it, I want to pay on installments. They know nothing about you. They have no relationship with you. The buy now, pay later as well. Dima, Tally, all of these companies, they never met that customer. So it's not as kind of the knowledge that banking had. And you also need more speed. As a bank, they process in the branch, historically, 30, 40 loans a day maximum. But right now, if you think of these online stores, how many transactions they can process a day on installments. Mm-hmm. So you could be granting thousands and millions of loans a day on a click of a button. And that's where the data and the credit bureau becomes an essential part of that journey. Because when that bank right now, a lot of banks are going digital on their loans, on their credit cards. They want, with a click of a button, to look up that person and ensure that I have a full history of that person to be able to say yes or no to that credit card. Loan onboarding or origination, they used to call it in banks, it took 3 to 5 days usually to process your loan.
Okay.
And right now, banks are expected to do it in minutes. And that's where not just data. So historically, bureaus tell you what happened in the past. Mm-hmm. But right now, we're not expected to do that. We're expected to tell you what could happen in the future.
So some sort of predictive analysis.
Exactly. And our credit score is a machine learning kind of score or a model that tells you about the probability of default. Historically, when bureaus were called registry, I would look up a person to see if he defaulted any time in the past. But what does that tell me of the future?
Yeah,
nothing.
True.
But now, when you look up somebody on the credit bureau and you see his credit score, a credit score will tell you what's the probability of this person defaulting in the next 6 months.
And as you said, now probably there's also the richness of data because now the score is let's say created based on more elements, not only what it used to be. As you said, now maybe it's going to be real estate involved. Or
Exactly. And the more, and with any AI or machine learning model, the more data you feed it and the more diverse data you feed the model, the better, the more accuracy or prediction power it has. And that's kind of the beauty of any company relying on that credit score to take a decision. Our role is to, digest all of this massive data from different sectors, from years, and then come up with a single kind of score or a tool that will help you say yes or no to that person based on that. And this is where kind of the intelligence is very important to ensure that we provide that tool and we enable those informed decisions to the lenders and to any business trying to, establish a new relationship. Even sometimes what we have, people, they call them the thin file customers, meaning somebody who had no credit history. He's new to the market. He never took. So we're actually working on something called the no-hit score. A no-hit score meaning somebody who's new to the market, never took a loan, and we analyze different data points about that person to provide kind of a somewhat accurate measurement to tell you this person is most likely, will default or no. Also to aid that decision. So it's more than just 1 point or only people who have good credit history. And a lot of the time, banks, for example, and we've seen it, banks, you've switched banks. You've had a great relationship with Bank A, and then you went to Bank B and they don't know you.
Yes.
They're probably hesitant to give big facilities. But if they look you up with the bureau, they will be able to look at your kind of credit behavior, other places that they don't know about you.
Yeah.
And that becomes the real value, that we always know more than the credit institution, the bank, or the retailer. And we are able to give them the 360 view of that customer, so they could, the decision is ultimately to them.
Yes.
But the knowledge is the power.
True. Now, I love hearing about it, and we are going to dive deeper into the initiatives that you guys have at CINET. But before I do that, I am aware of the fact that some of the people watching are not, connoisseurs, let's say, of the financial system and, everything that works around it. You mentioned earlier that Kuwait has great regulator or regulators. And I wanted us to clarify that for me to understand. When you say regulators, who exactly are you looking at? Is it central bank, ministries, institutions? Who are the regulators specifically in your activity?
Definitely. So as a credit bureau, we are regulated by the Central Bank of Kuwait. That's our main regulator, and this is the regulator that we report into. But we work with different kind of other regulators because of the portfolios that we deal with. So when I talk about our database or our customer base, there is, for the Central Bank of Kuwait, the portfolios that fall under that are the commercial lending, the consumer lending, which contains house loans, consumer loans, credit cards, all of that. There's the buy now, pay later, and there's also bounce checks are also reported for entities that are under the Central Bank of Kuwait.
Do we still have checks in 2026?
Corporates do use that, believe it or not. But it's something that I don't think it's as strong as the other portfolios or as heavy traffic as the others.
Yeah.
We have also for the Capital Markets Authority, so we work closely with them for the marginal trading portfolio. So there is a marginal trading that CMA or Capital Markets Authority license entities to do marginal trading, and they have to report that into CINET as well. So there is a special report for these corporates. Also, we work with the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. So as the Ministry of Commerce, they license retailers to do sales by installments. So any company, whether it's a furniture store, electronic store, any kind of store that sells anything by installments, the Ministry of Commerce is the regulator for that. And they are reporting the data into CINET through their license of the Ministry of Commerce. So, and the nice of the nice thing about working with different regulators, there are different mindsets, there are different type of clients, and there is a diverse data set. But that's what makes the credit report so rich, because you can, if somebody doesn't have a loan, he probably took something on a, furniture by installment. If somebody never buys anything on installment, he probably has a credit card. So the people have a fingerprint, have a footprint somewhere in any of those portfolio, and that's where everybody does have a credit report and a score.